Hey, Christine. I want to talk to you about
We wanted to get the community at large to begin talking about the problem of heterosexism, which is simply the assumption that's prevalent in much of society that being straight is preferable and superior to being gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. That belief system that permeates not only the media, but literature and music and much in our culture leads to an assumption that makes it okay to discriminate against our community and to preach from the pulpit words that are damaging and hurtful. Perhaps the most dramatic and dangerous and toxic outcome of heterosexism is the notion that people can and should change their sexual orientation and be straight. And I could tell you many stories from my clinical practice, but we have a number of wonderful speakers here who can tell you firsthand.
Hello, my name is Dr. Jallen Rix. As a sexologist, a student of theology, and an ex-gay survivor myself, I have been studying sexual orientation and sexual orientation conversion efforts, such as NARTH, for quite some time, and I would like to briefly give you some of my discoveries. First, let me start off with a quote from Glenda Russell, one of the therapists who was on the task force for the latest APA study on reparative therapy and a licensed clinical psychologist for over 2 decades. She said, quote, "No mainstream mental health organization in the United States supports reparative therapy or believes that it works. None. In fact, mainstream health organizations, such as all of those, all of these have published everything from a huge caution to an outright prohibition on reparative therapy. These organizations, after thorough scientific research, have found that homosexuality is not a mental illness, therefore there is nothing in need of repair. Sadly, NARTH is trying to cure, the cures that they are trying to represent, they are trying to cure the best of human impulses, and that is the impulse to love another human being. That really is the bottom line. Furthermore, the APA in 2009 reviewed all the research on reparative therapy, and as is in the study, and found that reparative therapy is basically ineffective. They did find that a small amount of ex-gays, as they call them, were able to change their outward identity, change maybe their behavior, and a small amount were able to suppress their sexuality altogether. But there was no significant decrease of homosexual orientation, and there was no significant increase of heterosexual orientation. Besides these techniques not working, reparative therapists have another real problem that they seem resolutely unwilling to address, and that is the potential for real harm to those who trust and submit themselves to this kind of treatment. Simply because NARTH says they have a client's best interest in view when they try to reduce the amount of unwanted homosexual feelings does not automatically mean NARTH is being helpful. On the contrary, how could ex-gay leadership assert such a claim and at the same time use outdated research and censor so much information about sexuality, not to mention about homosexuality, from their curriculum and from the participants who place their trust in them? They mislead clients about the nature of sexual orientation, about the possibility of change, about normative and positive life experiences of gays, lesbians, and bisexual people. I ask you, would you go to a doctor if you knew she was going to disregard a number of treatments that could possibly heal you? Would you consider a person a professional in their field if he was indignantly unwilling to incorporate all the facets of his area of specialty? Of course not. Conversion treatment often leaves clients with more conflict than they started. They often leave clients alienated from themselves, from their families, and from their religion. They often leave clients with an inability to have any kind of intimacy or connection. They often leave clients with sexual dysfunctions, depression, and even suicidalities. And we have the research on that. Finally, what amazes me is the extent to which the leaderships and the theorists of NARTH go in order to cautiously and subtly downplay their religious bias and a basic belief that God has told them that homosexuality is wrong in the first place. Do your homework, and you will find that everyone on NARTH leadership is an evangelical Christian with a few conservative Mormons and Jews mixed in. NARTH's therapists have a predisposed bias that homosexuality is sinful and an agenda that it should be changed. In fact, their version of religion is what motivates the whole organization. And you wouldn't know that by reading their information. Now, I find nothing wrong with therapists having a spiritual life, but I'm not even sure they do their religious roots justice, attempting to have a public image legitimized by the psychological community. The NARTH counselors are willing to downplay their Christianity, downplay their religious beliefs. Does that reflect a non-shame-based and transparent relationship with God? Is that a shining example of lighting their Christian candle and placing it in view like a city on a hill to see? I don't think so. But are they behaving in a familiar pattern? You bet. As an ex-gay, I was willing to do anything to gain acceptability. I was taught to bend my self-perception, lie to myself and others, betray what and whom I truly loved, and behave one way on the outside while nearly dying on the inside. It was a compulsive obsession to legitimize my acceptability. NARTH behaves this way. The truth of the matter is that NARTH's fundamental belief that homosexuality is a sin and that it is change-worthy has now created a kind of industry. Their benign-sounding call, well, we just want to help all those sad gays and lesbians with unwanted homosexual desires, is like a fast food restaurant putting out the call, we just want to help all the sad obese people. Yet, they insist that the only way to get thin is to eat their fatty, sugar-laden menu. NARTH fails to acknowledge that the ex-gay movement perpetuates the very problem it claims to solve. Thank you very much.